And this windmill and this beautiful country scene reminds me of one thing. 1931's Frankenstein, where the villagers surrounded Frankenstein's monster in the windmill. Spoiler alert, it didn't end well. Hey everyone, it's Cashew. Today's adventure brings us to Rio Grande, Ohio, or as the locals sometimes call it, Rio Grande, Ohio, to the 49th annual Bob Evans Farm Festival. Now, I was here last year, but I wanted to bring you back and see if anything's changed. So let's go take a look. Our adventure starts here. As you can tell from the ocean of cars, this festival has a great turnout. The highway separates the festival from the parking area, and we get there walking through the cattle chute. And it's pretty cool. Wait till you see it. It's pretty wild. We're walking under the highway. Like last year, you can also buy flowers here. Since it's Bob Evans Farm Festival, you can imagine they have lots to choose from if you're hungry. Those are big buckets of beans, aren't they? In this tent, you can pick your own Bob Evans Farm Festival design and they'll put it on for you. I bought some of their coffee last year and it was great. Let's see if they still have Mothman blend. Score. I got not one bag, but two. In this tent, the Columbus Zoo is giving a presentation.
So screech owls and other owl species just have fixed vision. So he can only look straight ahead. He can't keep your head still and look up or look to the side or anything like that. He has to be able to turn his head really far around to be able to see everything he needs to see.
Someone from the zoo just took a porcupine into the tent. I remember this from last year. They race pigs, ducks, and goats. Let's check it out.
All right, good afternoon and welcome pig racing fans to the Hogway Speedway and your 2019 Bob Evans Farm Festival. And we'll get a winner during the first pig race here at the Hogway Speedway. It's number 18, out late, number 10, number 18. Number 4, south, third tail track, to the 4, to the finish line, number 11. Let's see if he's going to race back around to the checkered flag. And they're on number 10, number 88, number 18, 11. They're horse one, they're 10 is now, they're hanging on the hand stretch. It's number 10, leaning back around the third track, hanging on the fourth track, to the finish line, number 10. And fly back around to the checkered flag. This number 80, down late, number 11, number 10, number 18. They're beat to beat, they're 10 to 10, they're second by hand on the ham stretch. It's number 88, leading the pike down the ham stretch to the third turn. It's number 88, leading the pike on the third turn, to the fourth turn. Down to the finish line, number 88. And we will crown the official pig queen of the Potbelly Pig Race. It's number 10, down late, number 11, number 18, number 88. And number 10, sitting back on the third turn, to the fourth turn, to the finish line, number 10.
The Forest Service is here to talk about forest fires. And who better to talk about forest fires than Smokey the Bear? Nice hat, Smokey the Bear. Nice hat. Oh look, Smokey the Bear is here. This is a favorite from last year, the Lumberjack Show.
Okay, this is the one we've all been looking for. All the marbles. All right. Or the $360,000 payday. I think that's where that. Okay, there they go. Who's it going to be? It's going to be Phil, going to be Jacob. Pick one out and cheer them on, folks. They're working really hard for you. Notice their feet never leave the end of their legs. Oh my goodness, too close to tell. Ooh. There they go. Pick one out. Get the ball all the way across the pond. You got to be careful. Oh, they both turn around. Wow.
And this is the cabin village where one of the people who works here said that Abraham Lincoln used to stay here because it was a halfway point between Illinois and Washington, but I've seen no documentation that proves that. Let's go inside and see what it looks like.
Well, I think we're already at the end of them.
What's that, Daddy?
And they had a second floor as well. This is one of my subscribers, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hope to see you next year here.
I
and
will.
On YouTube.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Thanks very much.
Let's go to the bee farm. You won't believe what I see. And here are some of the things they use to fuel bee smokers. And this is my favorite part of the festival, the farm animals. As you can tell, they've just been sheared. And there's a Vietnamese pot-bellied pig. Here's a beautiful goat. And here are some turkeys. Here's a duck and a goose. Forgive the foul language. In this pen, they have donkeys. Just look at those eyes. And look at the little calf over here. And here are my favorite, the alpacas. This is the section of the arts and crafts, and because some people don't want me to film their booths, I'm just going to show you this is the section. If you come here next year, this is what it'll look like. I was able to film some of the booths at last year's Bob Evans Farm Festival, so what I'll do is I'll put a link to last year's festival in the description box down below. I found one craftsman who was willing to let me film his booth, and wait till you see the work he does. It's fantastic. Look how great this work is. He built the cabin, he built the carriage, and he built the fence. This one's really cool. It has electricity hooked up to it so you can see a fire burning in it. All of these are really well made. For all you Gunsmoke fans, here's Miss Kitty's Long Branch. This is great. This is accurate even on the inside. Let me open the door for you and show you. Take a look at this sawmill. I don't know if you can tell, but check out the babbling brook. And these have glass windows. This is Bob Evans' home. It's now a museum. Unfortunately, it's closed, but maybe we'll come back and check it out. Well, I just lucked out. I got to go inside Bob Evans' museum. This is cool. I'll have what he's having. He looks mad. He thinks I'm going to take his breakfast. I better mosey on. Here's a 10-pound container of pork sausage you could buy. It says, along with the string ties, the company's food products sales team wore Stetson hats to complete the country image. Indeed, the Silver Stetson Award, the highest honor presented to a food product salesperson, continues to be given annually. Here are some of the string ties employees wore. Oh, this is right up my alley. This looks like Bob Evans Stetson. I think it's called an open road. That is indeed a nice hat. Recently, somebody told me President Johnson wore an open road Stetson. Here's a photo of Bob Evans wearing his Stetson. Here's what Bob Evans' kitchen looked like back in the day. And there's Bob and his wife. So at the Ohio State Fair, the pigs that won the championship, Bob Evans would buy the pig. This is one of the bells from the State Fair. This hat and apron were worn by demonstrators during in-store sales promotions. Check out the scale model of this Bob Evans restaurant. This is pretty cool. They definitely paid close attention to detail. Here's a collection of photos of Bob Evans and his wife, Jewel. On July 24th of this year, Jewel Evans died at the age of 99. Here are uniforms worn in the late 70s and early 80s. And here's his famous barn and silo that you see on a lot of promotional material. And next door, a Bob Evans restaurant. But we're not going in. I've got a special treat for you. And there's the highway, and here's our tunnel. Going towards the light. I wonder if I'll see Elvis. And here's what I wanted to show you. This is Bob and Jewel's grave. And Jewel died of June of this year, so you see her grave still doesn't have any grass on it. And then over here is Bob Evans' grave. And if you notice, this keystone is similar to the tops of the restaurants. And on the left is Bob's open road Stetson. And to the right is a little pig. And I'll show you a closer look at those in a minute. Behind Bob and Jewel's grave are the graves of Bob's parents, Elizabeth and Stanley Evans. Rest in peace, and thanks for the breakfast. Standing at Jewel and Bob's graves, you get a beautiful sight of West Virginia and the Ohio River. And everyone, this is Bob. He works for the Bob Evans Festival, and he's the man responsible for taking me to see Bob and Jewel's grave. Otherwise, I would have been completely lost. So thank you, Bob.
Well, thank you for having me. And for 12 years, my job was the Director of Travel and Tourism for Gallia County. And I work closely with the people at the Bob Evans Farm every year to put on the festival. And we were happy to put on the 49th Festival. Very good crowd this year. But prior to that, I was a clothing salesman and owned my own haberdashery business. It was called Haskins Tanner. And we sold the Bob Evans Stetson hats. And so we sold the very hat that Bob is famous for. It's a 7-inch or 7X silver belly. In the summertime, Bob would often wear a summer straw, but then it became quite frequent for him to continue to wear the felt that he's most famous for. And around here, people would actually come in the store. They would want the exact hat that Bob would wear. We sold everything from the string ties to the hats.
Didn't you also sell hats or give hats to management if they...
Correct. For a long time, Bob Evans would reward their Salesman of the Year with a 7X silver belly. And we sold that hat. It came right here in Gallipolis. It was actually manufactured in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we sold it. They bought it through me in Gallipolis.
And those were Stetsons as well?
They were Stetsons. Bob was always famous for the Stetson.
And then what else were you telling me about this cemetery? You were saying this was a lookout?
Yes, this was a lookout point during the Civil War. This was a lookout point for as the enemies would come this way. They would stand here where we are actually, and they would be able to look around the bend in the river you see behind me. Across this is West Virginia. We stand at the foothills of the division between the Northwest Territory and the Virginia colonies, and that is the turning point as part of our history. We also, as a side note, that Bob and his wife Jewel were very instrumental for the celebrating of the Emancipation Celebration. Gallia County is the oldest continual running celebration of the signing of the Emancipation. And Bob and Jewel always made sure that the Emancipation Committee had money to operate that. So all the way, every year, we celebrate the signing of the Emancipation Celebration when Abraham Lincoln signed the slaves to go free. And we have had that every year since, and we're known for that. But if the slaves would get to the river, then they would be free, because, as I said, this was the dividing point between the Northwest Territory and the Virginia colonies.
And then lastly, one of the guys in the parking lot who worked for the festival said that those cabins that you have on the property, that Lincoln actually stayed in one of those? And
we moved those cabins up so that they could be more visible. At the time, it was in a town called Adamsville, and so we moved them up to the farm because of flooding and things like that. And it does share a lot of history. There was a lot more than just Abraham Lincoln staying there, but there was a lot of other things that happened in those cabins. And it was even noted that other familiar people stayed in those cabins as well.
Okay, excellent. Well, thanks again for showing me the graves. Otherwise, I never would have found them. And
well, thank you. It's been great. It's been great.
It's been a full and wonderful day. I got to see alpacas, sheep, and Bob Evans Stetson. I want to thank Jeff, my subscriber, for contributing to my channel. I also want to thank Bob with Bob Evans Festival for taking me to see Bob Evans' grave. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. And if you're already subscribed, please encourage others to do so and join us on our adventures. The more the merrier. So until next time, this is Cashew signing off. This is the other overlook that Bob wanted me to take a look at before I left the cemetery. If you see that bridge in the distance, that's the bridge that leads into Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And that was the one that was built after the Silver Bridge collapsed in 1967.